Right.
What's up, guys? It is Sam Carrico, and I'm joined by Ricky Saucedo again. We're going to talk about some more Star Wars stuff. We're on our own
Star Wars
journey to The Force Awakens. We got like, a week or so at this point?
Yeah,
Just a little
1
over a week, and we are going to be seeing. I did a review for the anti-cheese edits of the prequel trilogy. It actually made it a little bit more enjoyable, so check that out. That was the first part of this series. This video we're going to talk about Star Wars Clone Wars.
The 2003 miniseries.
The 2D animated one. A lot of people are like, oh, the 3D one with Darth Maul and all that. No, it's not that one because that's just too much to cover in so close to Force Awakens. So I watched it. You're more familiar with it. It's new to me.
Yeah.
You watched it a long time ago and kind of reflected on it recently. So what do you like about it? What are some of your fond memories of it?
Oh man, just the whole thing. I remember a lot of it has to do with nostalgia as well, going back with the prequels.
Of course.
I like, some things about the prequels, but Clone Wars is a lot more redeemable than the prequels, especially, in retrospect, going back and rewatching it after seeing all the prequels, after, hearing so much about their faults. You go back and watch this Clone Wars, it's very simple, it's right to the point. It shows you the grittiness of how the Clone Wars and how it could have played out in the movies, and, directly... The end is directly before episode 3.
I loved that. That was so cool. I was like, whenever I put it together, wait, where is he going? He's going, oh my god. Yeah. Put it all together. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And it's very well done. It's from the creators of Samurai Jack. Mm-hmm. And that show, it's gotten a lot of acclaim, and I think Clone Wars also deserves a lot of acclaim. It's just very... It's not like super serious. It's kind of... there are some really serious moments. It gets very cinematic.
There's some, where some, like, especially when you get into what General Grievous does and what Count Dooku does and all the, the killing and all that. But then it also does have its, Star Wars. So there's C-3PO and R2-D2 kind of doing the Three Stooges shtick. Mm-hmm. I loved this show. It was really fun. You told me about it earlier on this year. You're like, you got to watch Clone Wars. And I'm like, yeah, maybe whenever I get around to it. And then I was like... so good. Yeah, I was watching the anti-cheese edits of the prequels, and I'm like, you know what? When I watched Attack of the Clones, I found myself enjoying Attack of the Clones and the whole Clone Wars and the concept. And I'm like, this is really fun. I'd love to see this get expanded on, which is something that you mentioned, the faults of the prequels, the Obi-Wan Anakin relationship, and then showing the Clone Wars themselves and the impact. I feel like this kind of gives the opportunity to rectify a little bit of that and show the Clone Wars, show the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Finally, and kind of make us believe, that Anakin is the best pilot and he was a good friend, because they actually go into how he's a good pilot and a lot of his adventures. So, and this introduced us to a lot of new characters that were really new at the time. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there was when this first came out, there was characters made for the show, and ever since that show came out, there have been plenty of expanded universe comics and books based on these characters. Most notably, there was Dirge the Bounty Hunter, who has a hatred for Mandalorians. Jango Fett is a Mandalorian, which is why he started killing clones. There's Asajj Ventress.
I loved her character. She's so intimidating.
One of the best characters in the Star Wars expanded universe. And also, of course, General Grievous.
He's the big one, yeah.
First, we were introduced to him first in 2003. And everyone that watched episode 3, I told them, you need to watch Clone Wars before you watch episode 3, because in episode 3 he was just kind of a wuss.
He's a little lackluster. He's just kind of, they even say in the dialogue of episode 3, he's a coward. He's just going to run away, and he does that the entire time. Like, why are we supposed to care about this character? And them calling him a coward, it's kind of weird because you see how badass he is.
Oh my gosh.
In Clone Wars, so it's weird that he's got that reputation.
He was terrifying.
It's good, and it's cool that they, you see Mace Windu kind of crushes in. But it's good that they explained why he's a little bit more so powered down in Revenge of the Sith, because if he was at his full height in Revenge of the Sith, it'd be crazy, because like you said, it's incredibly cinematic. There's a lot of the attacks, like I remember he's raiding on the Capitol in Coruscant, trying to get Palpatine. Just the creepy kind of atmosphere that they were able to build with it. The lights crackling on and off, and he's like over there, and he's over there, and he's like cutting people off.
He killed like 10 Jedi, I think, and like that his whole arc, he killed a lot of them. Capturing Palpatine, just just a total menace.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's kind of funny because he didn't know about Palpatine's involvement with the plot at all. So it kind of makes him look like a dumbass in that respect. But still a really threatening, intimidating character nonetheless. A lot, especially Asajj Ventress as well. I really enjoyed. I wish that we could have seen her put in the live action stuff. That would have been so cool to see her pop up in Revenge of the Sith. But I guess it makes sense why she couldn't. I think they did a book about Asajj Ventress recently in the since Disney acquired Lucasfilm. I feel like they did a book, so that's canon now. So that's really cool to think about. Another thing that I really enjoyed too was the way that they were able to expand on Count Dooku's plot, because I kind of, being that it really helped that I was able to watch this right in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and because it shows the expansion of Count Dooku's plot of getting more planets to join the separatists. I was about to say countries.
The Confederation of Independent Systems.
Is that what it was?
The CIS.
Yeah, I never got. I just recently started being able to get the brand recognition, because I didn't know until recently. They have their own little logo and everything. Yeah. But yeah, no, this series was really great. I haven't watched. Have you watched the entire 3D Clone Wars or just parts of it?
I've watched like 2 seasons maybe. I watched like the Darth Maul seasons.
Does it compare really?
Not really.
Not really. No. You prefer the 2D?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's there's some good things about the Clone Wars, the most recent one, but I mean, I feel like, and that's the one that's supposed to be canon.
Yeah, I know. This one's not canon. The other one is...
The 2003 one is canon to me.
It works so well. It makes
sense, yeah.
And that's another thing, that it works so well. They were specifically trying, because I feel like with the other Clone Wars, it was after Revenge of the Sith at that point. So it's like, all right, we can tell our own story. We don't really need to bridge the gap in a cool way anymore. This one was specifically created to bridge the gap, and sometimes filling a purpose like that is kind of maybe not the best idea for writing a story, but it works so well because they had to kind of keep it within the confines that they've created. They didn't just go willy-nilly and give Darth Maul spider legs or something like that, like they did in the other one. So they had a story to tell. They knew where they were going with it. They had a point A and point C. They just basically had to do point B. And you mentioned it to me that it would have been cool if we got Attack of the Clones is episode 1, and the story of the Clone Wars was episode 2. That would excuse me, that would have been really interesting, especially the way, I keep going back to this, the way that just a lot of those battle scenes, and they had some underwater battle scenes just all over across different terrains. It was so cool, and they even gave Padme something to do. I noticed in some of the episodes she went off on a little adventure with R2-D2 and C-3PO, and even that was fun because it wasn't just stale George Lucas directed Natalie Portman talking about how she's so beautiful because she's so in love, and oh god. He gave these characters personality, and I really enjoyed it. So if you could give a rating out of 10 to the whole show, it's really only 2 hours and like 10 minutes
it's
compressed.
A movie.
Yeah, it's movie length. So what would you give the movie then?
Well, seeing as I liked it more than all the prequels probably put together, I would say it's up there. It's probably 9.
A 9?
A 9. Like,
wow.
I really enjoyed this series. I have a lot of memories going with it too. Like, I was a little kid. I remember when it first premiered, and these episodes were...
They were short by themselves.
They were 5-minute episodes.
Yeah, that probably was a little annoying, I imagine, at times.
I was like, oh, we're going to watch an episode of this, and it was 5 minutes, and I was like, what?
All right, that's over. But I was spoiled, definitely, being able to just sit down, watch 2 hours and 10 minutes of Star Wars animated goodness. And the cool thing about it being animated is, George Lucas, it feels very animated in the prequels, but it's awkward because it's live action characters against a green screen. So this is entirely animated. So being that everything's animated, everything fits into the world smoothly, they're able to kind of really create an atmosphere that makes it feel full and makes it feel like an actual inhabitable place for these characters, like Coruscant and the jungle planet that I think Anakin and Asajj go to and fight on.
Yeah. That's Yavin 4.
Oh yeah, that was. There's a lot, and it's cool because there's a lot of Star Wars references and Easter eggs and nods to be found in this show specifically, and it makes me want to go back and watch Samurai Jack too, because this is from the creators of that, and I just have such fond memories of it. So man, 2003, that's crazy. Yeah, especially that they had the foresight to incorporate General Grievous, and because Revenge of the Sith wasn't until 2005,
Yeah.
so they had a good while in between.
Yeah, I think I read something online that George Lucas actually, they were going to make another character, or they were going to bring back Dirge, the character at the beginning of the show, to be in General Grievous's position, but then George Lucas was like, no, you got to introduce General Grievous for episode 3. And they were like, okay. And then, thank God they did, because it was incredible.
Oh, it was great. And then gave us I honestly, I always liked the idea of General Grievous. I thought he was a really cool character ever since I saw him in Revenge of the Sith. Mm-hmm. As I grew a little bit older, I realized he's more of a wuss and whatnot, but he's still a cool idea as a character.
Yeah.
This show kind of gave me the opportunity to see one of my favorite characters from the prequels fully realized. And now it'd almost be cool if we got a like an episode 1 tie-in show or something now, and I had Darth Maul. If only. I guess I'll have to watch part of the parts of the 3D Clone Wars that he's in. Is it worth it? Just a little tangent. Is it worth it? Is it good payoff for his storyline?
It's fun. It's nice to see him again.
Yeah.
I remember there was like a comic book with that whole arc, Darth Maul coming back to fight Obi-Wan, but it was when Obi-Wan was already, it was like before episode 4, like.
Oh, so it was closer to his Alec Guinness years.
Yeah. And that was like really cool. I liked thinking about it, and then seeing it, brought to life in the Clone Wars. I was like, yeah, that's cool. Mm-hmm. It's not how I wanted it to be, but I mean, it's still it's Darth Maul, Darth Maul and Obi-Wan.
Well, I mentioned in my anti-cheese prequel edit reviews or my review of the anti-cheese prequel edits rather, those edits made Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clone. Well, Phantom Menace, it made it more like a 5.5 because it went from being like a 3 to a 5.5. Yeah. I really didn't enjoy the original theatrical version. I really liked the Phantom Edit is enjoyable.
Yeah.
Better than 50%, and it made Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith probably each a 6.5, which is a lot better than it originally was. And I would say that the Clone Wars, this 2D animated show at least, is probably a good 7. It's not as good. I don't think it's anywhere close to Empire or New Hope or Return of the Jedi, of course, which I think are 9s. So, but it's still definitely something that if you want that Star Wars goodness that it's something you haven't experienced. Don't be afraid that it's something that don't be afraid that it's related to the prequels, because it's still really good. Mm-hmm. So, is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap it up?
Speaking of the Clone Wars, I was rewatching it last night, and I really liked that the clones themselves actually got like a lot of the spotlight. There were sequences in which they were able to show off, their strategies and their tactics and how well they worked as units. And,
the hierarchy.
Yeah, a little bit. And I was watching it. I really enjoyed these sequences, the battle sequences, and how back then there were whole episodes, but they would just devote whole episodes to a specific battle, like Mace Windu, like defeating that whole army. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Just battled all of them. It was great.
Mace Windu was really cool in this show as well too, and it kind of made me think about him as a character even. And it really was cool that the prequels gave us something that, and in the Clone Wars as well, gave us something that we hadn't seen before. Regardless of how you felt about the quality, it gave us a bunch of an army of Jedi almost fighting a bunch of battle droids at their peak, and Attack of the Clones, the ending to that, and then now the Clone Wars. It's really fun to see that, because I feel it's kind of something that kind of sucks, because in the episode 7, Force Awakens, it still looks like we're still at a point where the Jedi Order isn't fully back yet, so we might have to settle for just a small amount of characters with lightsabers. So
it'll come back
eventually, maybe episode 9 or 8 or so. Who knows? It's so crazy that we're so close to episode 7 now at this point. Did you see the leaked picture of Snoke that came out? Supreme Leader Snoke?
I did not.
Looks like a familiar face. All right, so on that note, we will end it. Be sure to stay tuned. I have like I keep mentioning, I reviewed the anti-cheese edits of the Star Wars prequels. Really enjoyable. I kind of get into what was changed, what's still the same, what I liked, what I didn't like. Check that out. We are going to be shooting a Creed spoiler review here in a sec, and so that'll probably be up around the same time as this. And then, of course, we will do a video soon, just reflecting on Star Wars, the original trilogy that we love so much. And then, of course, on December 7th, or probably December 18th, whenever we get to actually talk about it, Star Wars Force Awakens. It's going to be crazy. Just 1 week. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. You can follow me on the various social media sites at Samuel D. Carrico.
Twitter at Rickety_Rockety and Instagram at Rick Saucedo. Okay. Farewell.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.